the start of assembly of a doubler section. These are the components that are needed. We have a 3-inch cap. We have a 3-inch pipe, 18 inches long. We have a 1/2-inch 90, a 1/2-inch street 90, a 1/2-inch 45 street, a 1/2-inch T, a 1/2-inch female pipe adapter, 2 1-inch sections of 1/2-inch pipe. We have an 1.25-inch long piece of 3/4 pipe. We have a 3/4 90, a 3/4 female adapter, and we'll be making what I call the skirt from either the cap or a coupling, and we'll show how you can make it from either one. We have a 16-inch long piece of 1/2-inch pipe and a 5-inch long piece of 3/4-inch pipe. Alright, I'm going to assemble the small components first, and then we'll go to the large items. Anytime you solder copper, you have to prep the surface by sanding it or wire brushing it, and then fluxing. What I do when I assemble these two is to make sure they're in line is set them on a flat surface, and one of those things there fit so tight together you can't hardly get them to move, but you know, if you set them on a flat surface and get them where they don't rock, then you're pretty well in line. There you go. Well, it's going to rock because one's a little higher than the other, but at any rate, it's pretty straight there. Allie's my professional solderer for the small stuff, especially.
Except for I'm not in my workstation here. I don't feel all funny doing it here.
Aired it on the belt sander. What we do, we just kind of round the corner on the ends, because whenever you cut tubing, the cutter flares it out, and that'll make it difficult to assemble. And then I sanded back a little ways on each end for where the solder connection will be. I've done that to both of the pieces that we'll be using on this assembly. And now if you'll go ahead and put this is the drain pipe that we're assembling now, or well, that was also what this small piece goes to, is a drain pipe. The tip of that inside blue flame, the light blue, that is the hottest point of the flame, and so that's where you want to touch that, whatever you're soldering, to get the quickest heat transfer.
And on the little stuff, you don't want that flame to be too hot.
Alright, she's getting ready to solder the T section now, and something we need to point out. The way she's putting this together, these are both pointing out in the same plane. They're both coming perpendicular off of this, and she's eyeballing that particular piece.
Mistakes now that I'm not self-conscious.
Yeah, I think you moved it.
Yeah. You want solder always to flow downward, whenever possible.
Yeah. It will actually wick up into a connection, but if you have the opportunity to assemble it in such a way that you're always letting your solder flow downward, then that's a little more of a guarantee that you're going to get a good solder joint.
On some of these things, if you solder something first, a lot of times when it heats up, it'll melt the solder inside and everything flows down.
we're just continuing here with the assembly of the drain pipe.
An important note for the pipe adapters is that you don't want to get solder inside on the on the little
On the
groove.
threads.
Yeah, on the threads. You don't want to get solder there. So you got to be careful about how much you put on here.
So if you get solder down in there, then it's a scrap part.
I need a hammer.
Anytime you tap in any parts like she had to do there, always use something softer than copper so you don't bail out where you're going to be needing to put another fitting together.
And you don't.
Right, yeah, if you're on the other end of it, banging on it. We also always, anytime we have to hammer something together, we make sure it's on wood. If you have it on a hard surface, it'll damage the copper.
Okay, we're continuing on the drain pipe here. Okay, this is just like the half-inch pipe adapter. You don't want to get too much solder in here. You want to protect the threads. And I like to test with my solder. You pull the flame away a little bit until it's, until it runs, because if you get it too hot, it just does not work.
You don't want to stick the solder directly into the flame because then it'll just melt.
Yeah, and then you won't get a good bondage, or you can see how it melted there.
You want to let the solder follow the flame, not stick it directly in the flame.
Right. Because the flame will melt the solder in her. You want the metal to melt the solder. This is the assembly of the steam inlet pipe.
It's gonna make me sneeze. And like the other pieces, you want to have the end at a slight angle so you don't get solder running down in it.
Yeah, where she's talking about getting solder is here in this section where you're going to have to be
Yeah.
adding another
Just right here.
another solder joint.
I mean,
Anything you get in there is just going to be extra work getting it out.
a lot of extra work.
Yep.
Yeah. While she's working on this joint, I like to fill in the dead space, show you some air tools that really help in the production. We have an angle grinder. We have several different fittings to go on the end of it. This is an abrasive pad. We have sanding pads, wire wheels. We just have a pneumatic drill. That's a coarse brush for when you have a really big section of solder that you need to remove, but this will also scar the copper really bad. Gotta watch out for that. We use cutoff wheel quite a bit. Primarily, probably its biggest use is to cut the end of the coils off where they come through. We have several die grinders. This is a carborundum bit. It's really good for removing solder overflows, and just a grinding pad for this. Cleans up the burrs from the holes we drill really nice.
Now on
That's-
this, when it's tilted like that, the solder will flow kind of around. So you want to make sure you get more up front, so it doesn't all flow to the back. And you can see where a little bit ran on the inside, but that won't affect putting it together at all, since it's not right on the end.
Very good.
It's always nice to have 2 or 3 pairs of these pliers around.
Yeah, on that note, we found it's a lot more productive to have several items around that you use regularly, because it costs a lot of man hours if you're constantly trying to find one pair of pliers or one marker, one die grinder. Obviously organization eliminates a lot of that, but when you're in the middle of the still, you know, things get kind of scattered. So it's really productive to have some extras.
Good job, Allison.
Probably a good note. Just be careful where you grip it right after you're done, because you don't want to. I mean it.
Yeah, it's a good idea to let it sit for, make sure the solder's cured
Before you try to move
before
it.
you move it, and
Or at least move it at the joint.
right. I'm just going to show this one time how we do it. We do it the same way on every piece that we prep, so I'm not going to show it every time. Here, where you've got a back plate on your belt sander, I go in at an angle and get that squirt belt out from the cutter, and then however far back you need to prep your solder joint, I come up above where the backstop is.
You want to be careful about grabbing the pipe adapter with the pliers, because you don't want to bend or do anything to the threads.
Right. You have a shot at that. Wobble back and forth. Try not to scar the copper up. It's far enough. It went in good ways. It may be in all the way.
Want to be careful about where you put your heat, because you don't want to mess up your previous joints.
You notice where she's got the point of that flame, the light blue flame. It's
About right at the
yeah,
where
it's
you're soldering.
almost at the point, and right where you need to solder, is where you want your heat to go. Okay, here are the assembled components for the drain pipe and the steam inlet, and now we're going to start on the bottom of the doubler, where we'll put all this together. What we do, I found the simplest and easiest. We have 3-inch cutoff wheels that go to our cutoff grinder, and I just center that dude right onto the end of the cap, and then put my little circle there. That's where the center hole goes, and then I'll put that in the center of that circle. There's our center hole, and then you measure out 1 inch from there. It doesn't matter what direction you go. There's where the other hole is going to go. Your large hole for your steam inlet goes to the center. It's a 7/8 diameter hole. You have a 5/8 diameter hole here off to the side. And we also have to make a skirt, to what I call a skirt, to go on the inlet pipe for stability where it passes through the wall of the end cap. So I'm going to move over to the bandsaw now to make the skirt. Show you how we make the skirts. They can be made either out of couplings or caps. We make them out of couplings because for the one cut you get 2 instead of 1. I want to show you how to do it with caps in case you have caps in stock that you need to use up, or if for some reason you can't get a coupling. Alright, for the cap, I'll cut the end out of it. I'm going all the way around. Any wide places where there's no cut, I'm filling one in. Okay. On a coupling, you cut it in half, and then you'll do the same thing as far as notching on each of these. the coupling, as you notice, had a ridge on the inside there. So you definitely want to notch out this end of it, or you'll never, you know, otherwise you won't get your pipe to go through it. Alright, I'm continuing with the making of the skirt. I go ahead and prep the inside of it because that's where the solder is going to be, and it's going to be on the back side of these tabs once I flare them out. The way we do these is hitting the center with the round side of a ball peen. That gets them started out. I should have used a bigger ball peen. Got them flared out a little further. I'm continuing with drilling out the end cap that goes on the bottom of the doubler. I've already marked these holes, so I'm going to drill a pilot hole. I have a step drill, goes up to 7/8. Going with the second hole. It's real important that you don't go through too far on this. If you do, you know, you'll scrap this part. I keep a 1/2-inch pipe handy to fit it, and just to be safe, I'm going to make sure I'm almost there. Okay, I've got the outside is at the right diameter, but the inside still not quite there. There we go, good tight fit.
Perfect fit.
Alright, we're going to knock those burrs off. I've got a sanding disc on an angle grinder. Alright, you can see that you know, that cleaned the burrs off real good. Next, you may want to take a rat tail file. This 7/8 bit that goes through here is notoriously extremely tight fit. Yep.
Nice fit.
Made a liar out of me.
Yep.
So you don't need to take a file of that at all. It's ready for the parts. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'll put a 1/2-inch stub in here. What I call a stub, it's a 1-inch long piece that's been flared out. One thing we didn't have, one part, and so you'll need to add this to your list of things needed, was another 1-inch piece of 1/2-inch pipe, and we've cut into it with the bandsaw, and I'm getting ready to prep that to put in there now. This I prepped the outside because when you bend these out, it's the outside of them that's going to be the solder joint. And also this edge needs to be ground down. And this is where you need a small ball peen hammer to start this 1/2-inch pipe. Once you get started, you can step up to a larger one. And if you miss and bend one in, you just take the pliers to it and straighten it out. We need to flux around both these holes liberally. I flux the rolled out surface there, plus a little ways up on the pipe, because that's going to be a solder joint. And then I get it over to the hole, and hopefully it'll go in there without too much persuasion. There we go. Alright, that's in. What I use to tap that in with is a round bar. It's just a steel bar. Looks like 1 inch. We use these quite a bit around here. Apply flux to this 5-inch piece. I flux the inside of the skirt and the bottom of the tabs. Install the skirt onto the 3/4 pipe. Alright, we have 4 inches here, 1 inch here. Put that in. And this can be really frustrating here. You've got to try to bend these tabs down to get as close, or actually you want them up touching the inside of the cap.